Hello, everybody. Welcome to Opera Talk. You're going to hear us recorded. We had a little technical difficulty with our Facebook feed, so you'll see this a bit later. I am so delighted to welcome our guest today, baritone extraordinaire, Kenneth Overton.
Hey, everybody.
He is in New Jersey right now, I believe, talking to us. Is that correct?
Yes, in the snow.
Kenny has a very special connection to Winston-Salem because he went here as an undergraduate to UNCSA, then at that point called NCSA, I believe, correct?
And no film school.
And no film school, so pre-film school. And
Yeah.
he studied with Bill Beck, who appeared many times with Piedmont Opera. Most recently, I believe it was in a production of La Boheme, or it might have been the Emperor Altuono in Turandot. He played
Oh,
Ben
amazing.
Altuono, and then Piedmont Opera did a production of Turandot in concert, which basically they staged it in front and had the chorus at the back. And at the back there, he was back there being the emperor, and I think at that point he was maybe 88 or 87. I'd something like that.
Wow.
And he's still doing well. He's moved in with his daughter down in Charlotte and still
Yes.
live and kicking 92, 93, something like that. Just had his birthday around Christmas. So I'll make sure when I talk to him to mention that we did this, and we'll probably make sure we get this to him.
Please
So
do.
uh, we're so delightful. Kenny has sung all over the world, but with a few places I could mention here. He's sang with New York City Opera, San Francisco Opera, Deutsche Oper Berlin, to name a few. He's sung in Amsterdam. He's sung in. It's just, I mean, I can't. We go, Meredith. We'll get when we put this up live. We'll put your website in there so they can read about you. But he also, we were talking beforehand, appeared on Broadway and actually was on the Tony Awards because he was part of Baz Luhrmann's Bohème Broadway. And I remember I might have seen you. I don't know because there was one weekend where City Opera was doing it, the Met was doing it, and it was on Broadway. So I even though I know Bohème, I shackled out the money and I went to see all three productions in a week because that was a
Wow.
big deal. Three Bohèmes, so three very different Bohèmes, obviously, but three
Yes.
Bohèmes, and so that must have been exciting to be on Broadway.
It was. It's an amazing sort of discipline to be able to get that energy up 8 times a week, twice on Wednesday and twice on Saturday. It's
Yeah,
quite different from traditional opera.
but it was the whole opera.
It was the whole opera in
Yeah.
Italian, no cuts, nothing. We just had little microphones in our heads, but other than that, it was
So Kenny, and we have talked for Kenny and I worked together in Princeton Festival. That's where I got to meet him. But certainly had heard his name because Bill Beck talked about him a lot when he was around. He talked about Kenny Overton, and so I thought, well, who is this guy? And then he showed up. He showed up in my production playing Jake in Porgy and Bess, and he's a fantastic colleague, artist. We had some young people in there, and I remember I had a little health issue during that, and he took some of the smaller parts aside and kind of talked them through. I remember how generous he was with that,
oh, that's right.
you forget you do that. And I know I've said this to you before, but I think there's a career as a stage director for you in there somewhere.
I think so too. I'm liking the idea more and more. So I'll
So
be calling you
I'm
Kristen.
just letting you know that I saw that many years ago. Okay, so I'm still you're on my you're in my head. I may be plotting something for you. I don't know, but
Okay,
I think there's a way to bring that out in you because I think you have an incredible amount to share that way. So I'd like to encourage that.
let's do it.
Okay, so Kenny, how does a boy from Philadelphia get
Mm,
involved in this world of classical music, and to the extent that you're very fortunate because you've pretty much been doing this, you've been in the career a long time,
long
which is
time.
unusual for classical singers. They say a lot of people are in for 7 to 10 years and then they go teaching, and there's I mean the career of a classical musician, but you've just not let anything, no grass growing under your feet. You just keep going. So why don't you tell people about your journey to classical music?
Yeah, I grew up inner city Philadelphia. I'm the oldest of 3 kids, and none of my siblings sing. My parents don't sing. Nobody in my family sings, especially to classical music. It's so I think God has a brilliant sense of humor when it came to that. Um, but my musical ears started probably in church. My grandmother would take me to church as a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, and she noticed that I would imitate the sounds of the women in the choir, and I would be able to memorize the melodies of the hymns
Hmm.
And she sort of thought that that was weird, but didn't think twice about it.
Yeah.
But then as I grew up, I started, singing in the bathroom with a hairbrush for a microphone or a broomstick, to Michael Jackson or to Stevie Wonder or to Bon Jovi or to
Really
Madonna or to
good
Whitney.
taste.
Yeah, like that was what I was doing as a kid in my spare time. But then I saw the television show Fame, and my world was rocked.
I love Fame.
I loved it so much. I'm like, look at these kids having so much fun dancing down the streets on top of taxi cabs. And but at the time, I was planning to go to Central High School for Boys in Philadelphia, and that's where smart boys went, because I thought I wanted to be an attorney. And at times I still do. But I saw this show, and I went to my guidance counselor the next day and I said, "Oh my God, is there a school like that in Philadelphia?" And he said, "Well, yeah, there is, but you're going to Central." And I said, "No, no, no, I have to audition for this school." And so he put the application in and they granted me an audition. I did not tell my parents, but as most 13-year-old boys do, I didn't think the plan through all the way, because not knowing that any correspondence from the school would come in the mail to my house, which was what happened. And I got home from school and my mom sitting there with the envelope, and she said,
Uh-oh.
you need to explain yourself, young man. And so, like Meryl Streep, I can turn on waterworks immediately. Like,
Uh-huh.
and so I started crying, like, "Please let me go, please, 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 please." And she said the most fearful thing in all my life: "Just wait till your father gets home."
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. And so they sat me down,
Mhm.
read me the riot act, for one, not telling them that I was doing this, but also they said, "Listen, we'll give you 1 semester. And if your grades falter or you come home with a shaved head or tattoos or blue hair or piercings, we're yanking you out of there." "And you're going to Central High School for Boys to be an attorney." And
Okay.
so I took that as a challenge as a 13-year-old.
Hmm.
And I went to that school with a vengeance. I said, "Oh my God, I have to do great because I want to stay here." Well, I got to the school and it was nothing like that, what I saw on TV. The kids were not dancing down the streets and on taxi cabs. We actually had music theory and sight singing and music history and 3 periods of choir a day, in addition to the academics.
Hmm.
And I didn't know anything about music education and theory and all of that. And I was doing poorly. I was intimidated by it, because I had only sung by ear. I
Right.
could regurgitate sound and words and melodies. And I would cut my first period sight singing class because I would make myself physically nauseous
Have
out
to
of
have to go
out
in
of
there and
fear.
face, and yeah, that and listen, that's that happens nowadays. We have kids in college who fear sightseeing.
Yeah, feared it. And my choir director, who was not African American, but had a choir of about 60 of us that looked like a Benetton ad, every color imaginable, but he was such a powerful force. He realized that I was doing this and got me a tutor, and then it started to click. And I was learning fixed dough and movable dough and this and that. And it's like, oh, okay, this makes sense. 2 + 2 is 4. I
Mhm.
get it. I get it. But then Mother Nature played a trick on me, and puberty hit and my voice changed. So I started high school as a boy soprano. And in 2 weeks' time, I was a baritone.
Mhm.
And nothing ever in between. And I was devastated. I didn't know what was happening.
Mhm.
I just knew that I couldn't do with my voice on that day that I could do just a week prior. And he
Right.
says, "Calm down." This happens to all of us. Calm down. And so I got the hang of it. And about my 10th grade year, he said, "Well, Kenneth, I'm noticing some things in choir. And now that you are comfortable with sight singing and all of that, I think you should look into studying classical music." And I said, "Well, I think you're nuts. Not doing that, not doing that." Because at the time, Bugs Bunny was my only classical music experience. The Brunhilde with the
Yep.
horns, that
Yeah.
was it. And so I didn't see myself in that at all. So the night that changed my life was Jessie Norman came to Philadelphia to
Mhm.
give a recital. And she gave our high school choir free tickets. And he made it mandatory for all of us to go. And he said, and Kenneth, you're sitting next to me. And so I was not pleased that I had to go to this recital because, mind you, I didn't know who Jesse Norman was at the time. I didn't know if Jesse was a man or a woman. I didn't know if Jesse was black or white or whatever.
Mhm.
I just knew that I had to be inconvenienced and miss the new episode of The Cosby Show, which was Thursday at 8 o'clock, which was when this recital was. Um,
Thank God for that teacher. That's all I have to say.
and so we get there to the Academy of Music in Philadelphia, beautiful theater. And we see people arriving in limousines and ladies in fur coats and men in tuxedos and jewels and bouffant hair and all of this. And we go up to the cheap seats and there's just a piano in the center of the stage. And all of a sudden, this woman emerges from stage right, floating on air. And the audience erupts in applause. And I remember being stunned by this because I didn't know classical music decorum. And so I asked, I said, well, why are they clapping? She hasn't sung anything yet. What's going on? And he patted me on my leg and he said, just hold on. And 2 hours later, I was weeping. And I looked at him and I said, is this what you think that I can do? And he said, that's what I know you can do. So from, I would say, February of my 10th grade year, I became this classical music sponge. Mm-hmm. And I started going to the library and checking out VHS tapes and albums and records and cassette tapes of anything I could get my hands on of not only Jesse Norman, but then my choir director, who would normally every morning play records of every opera singer imaginable, sort of subliminally working on us. He would play Callas and Sutherland and Pavarotti and UC Berling and Marian Anderson and Leontine Price, all these people in the mornings. And we would sort of be confused, like, why is he choosing to listen to this? And now, having had this experience seeing Miss Norman live, I finally got it. I got it. And so I wanted to know about these people. And then he said, well, Marian Anderson grew up about 4 or 5 blocks away from where this school is right now. And I just lost it. I was just like, are you kidding me? And so then I had to break the news to my parents that this was not a phase and that I wanted to be an opera singer. Oh my God. So they were confused. They were like, well, why do we have to pay tuition for you to go to music for somebody to teach you how to sing? You already know how to sing. It's like, well, mom, dad, no, it's a whole thing. Like, so they didn't get it at the time.
Right.
But fortunately, they didn't have to pay because NCSA gave me a full scholarship. But I did audition for Juilliard and Manhattan School of Music and Peabody and Boston Conservatory. But the kicker for NCSA was, at the time, Dean Larry Allen Smith and Assistant Dean Yekovich would do in-person auditions. They would go to every performing arts high school on the East Coast, and they would tape record. Imagine that.
When I first came to school here, I did some of those auditions with the tape.
Oh my God. They tape recorded our auditions, and then they would take them back to the voice faculty, and the faculty would listen, and the faculty would say, oh, I want this person, this person, this person. But they left with us their promotional materials. And on the cover of the promotional materials that year was a gigantic picture of Tishina Vaughn. And it was the production of Coronation of Poppaea, and she was in this grand pose. And I said, I want to go there. I want to go there. And so that was it. And it was far enough away from Philadelphia that my parents could not just drop by.
Well, but that's not unusual for any student. They want to be just far enough away, close enough where they could get home, but not so far, not so close that people can drop in. Yeah. So
yeah.
But that's a great story because I think a lot of young singers or a lot of classical musicians, they have that person.
Yes.
Who notices something in somebody, and then, regardless of what you think, are gonna they have a plan. And I always tell my students, have your plan. That's fine. I can wait.
Yeah.
I know this is where you're going to end up, but if you need to go through the rest of that, that's fine. Get it out of
Yep.
your system. Yeah. So that's fun. That guy, is that now? Did you keep in touch with him after you left the
He's
choir
yeah,
director?
for a few years. He passed away, I think, when I had gone to Hart School of Music. He had passed away. But I know he's watching, and I think of him
Yeah.
often because he was instrumental in a lot of our careers. Like soprano Karen Slack went to the same school.
Mhm.
Tenor Izakiah Savage went to the same school. Leah Hawkins went to the same school. Boys to Men went to the same school. Like we
Ah.
were all in the same. I was in the same choir with Boys to Men, and the guys from the Roots. They
Mhm.
played in the symphony orchestra at the same high school.
Mhm.
So it was a great place to be exposed to classical music.
Yeah. Okay, so you do your you come to North Carolina. You come to study with one teacher, and then that teacher leaves, and you're assigned to another teacher, right?
Yeah. And I have to say a big shout out to Bill Beck because he gave me a hard bound score of Porgy and Bess. And he said, "You'll need this more than me in your life." And at the time, I didn't get it. I didn't know what that meant. And I still have it. And that's the only score that I use. Has markings all over the place.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Frederick Moses was the teacher who grabbed my tape, my audition tape. But when I went there, he left to go to the Hart School of Music. And so they placed me with Bill Beck, which was a huge blessing, because before that, I never had voice lessons. I never had private voice lessons.
Just your choir teacher helped you learn your music, and
Correct. We learned, he taught me, and I still remember the three songs. It was Per la Gloria, the first song in the 24
yeah.
Italian songbook. It was Where You Walk of Handel, and
Mhm.
it was Deep River of Harry T. Burley. And
Really good audition pieces. Yeah.
yeah, and I chose Deep River because Jesse Norman sang it in that recital that night, and I begged to learn it. So yeah, and then got there, and I felt for the first month or two really sort of out of place because so many students had prior private voice instruction. And so one of my good friends who actually now lives just a town over from me, Jenny Welch Babbage, she was there and she had gone to high school at NCSA. And then I had heard her in performance hour in Crawford Hall at the time. And she got up and sang, and I was like, uh, she's the same age as me. I can't do that. Oh my God. What have I done? Where am I?
Mhm.
Oh my God. But then, like School of the Arts, they embraced me, us, and at the time there was only about 600 students at the school across all of the disciplines, including high school and college, with no film school at the time, and so we got lots of personalized attention, and it clicked. It was a very safe place to do amazing, concentrated, focused work. And being a city kid and coming to Winston-Salem, because at the time, Winston-Salem shut down at 5 o'clock.
Oh yes, it doesn't do that anymore. But when I first moved here, after 5 o'clock, unless there was something at the Stevens Center,
Yeah,
tumbleweeds. I used to say tumbleweeds going.
tumbleweeds. And I was used to, subways and buses and this and that and that. None of that. But it was a good thing.
No
It was
distractions, right?
absolutely, absolutely. And it was also bad because I was introduced to Krispy Kreme
Oh
because we
God.
didn't have that up north at the
Yeah.
time. And we would get in the car and we would go to Greensboro. And they said, well, you have to go when the hot sign is on. And I'm like, what is this hot sign? So then came the freshman 15, because then my calculus teacher at NCSA would always bring stacks of donuts on test day
Hmm.
to get our sugar levels up to take tests.
Hmm.
And so it was a tremendous time, and I still am friends with so many of my classmates that were there. It's such a special school, and I've been a soloist in many orchestras where they're NCSA alums, and
Hmm.
it's been fantastic.
Okay, so you go there, then you go to the Hart School for Graduate School to finally
Yes.
work with Frederick Moses because you went
Yes.
there and you said, well, I got to find out what this guy's about, and you begin your graduate education up there, right?
Yes.
And that goes very well for you, obviously, right?
It goes well to a point
Hmm.
because I feel like I've had three careers because in between NCSA and going to Hart, I
Hmm.
got accepted into the Chautauqua Opera Young Artist Studio.
Okay.
And I was the youngest person in the studio of 16. I was
Hmm.
the only Black person in the studio. And then all of my friends at Hart were like, well, who do you think you are just coming here? You know, and there were two opera teachers at Hart that had scenes programs as a part of their classes. And one of them told me that he didn't think that I had what it took to do this. And so I went to the other one. And the other one was a woman by the name of Adelaide Bishop,
Hmm.
who was of great city opera fame in her career, and she taught me so much about being on the opera stage,
Hmm.
and Frederick Moses taught me so much, and then Dean Smith was the dean, the
Right.
same dean
That
who,
came
you
up to
know,
hear your audition. Yeah.
all of these circular
Yeah.
moments at the school. And so after I finished at Hart, it got really awkward because I didn't go right into a career. I went into retail because people were saying, "Oh, well, you're too young for this, and your voice isn't ready to do that."
And that's always so hard for especially for the more the fuller lyric voices, the men. It's
Yep,
just and it's I think for a lot of people it's just okay. What can I? How can I wait this out until I'm not too young, but
right.
still get experience? Because I mean, you don't want to get sucked into the money thing and then not and give up your dream. You know.
Which is what I was doing. Like I got comfortable. I was working as a visual merchandiser for Gap Incorporated,
Hmm.
and Gap owns Banana Republic and Old Navy. And so I would be dressing mannequins and stuff at Old Navy and then doing a store opening for a new Gap store and working 40 hours a week with benefits and the whole thing. Meanwhile, I was having a church job at night and singing in the opera chorus when Connecticut Opera would have operas 4 times a year.
Hmm.
And then Connecticut Opera started a young artist program, a 9-month program. And they said, we want to offer you a position. But at the time, it paid $250 a week with no benefits, no nothing.
That
And
is so
so
hard.
I was like, oh my God,
What
what
do
am
they
I going
want
to
to
do?
do?
What am I going to do? And so I got on my knees and prayed. And I said, Lord, I know you want me to sing. I know I need to sing. I know I have to sing. And so I left my job. And from that moment, as a 24-year-old, I've never had to do anything else in my life but sing.
So that is a wonderful. I mean, and having the courage, the leap of faith to say
Mhm.
it's going to be okay. I
It's going to
can.
be okay.
That's hard walking away from a full time job with benefits.
Oh,
That
yes.
especially in their 20s where things are really like you like things, right?
Yeah, I like things. I liked my things. And at the time, I remember, my parents were still trying to figure out what the heck I was doing with
Hmm.
my life. Like, what is this opera thing? And can you sustain yourself really?
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, it was a tough time, and there were lots of days of ramen noodles and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, but
But you wanted to do what you wanted to do,
yes.
and so now you're in the career. You're singing all over the place. You're getting your experience. You're not only singing. You're singing Mozart. You're getting into some Puccini, some Verdi,
Mhm.
but you also have this wonderful experience in this relationship with Porgy and Bess.
Yes, which I was discouraged to do.
Yeah.
People told me, all my mentors, teachers,
Yeah.
coaches, stay away from that piece. You'll get pigeonholed. It'll ruin your voice. People won't hire you for anything else. And so for my years at the Connecticut Opera, um, I it never came up
Hmm.
until my last season there. It was the last opera in their season, and I had to do the role of Jake because it was a part of my young artist contract. And so I
Hmm.
did it, and it was fantastic. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, why are people so weird about this piece? Um, but during those performances was when I got my first agent. So the agent came to see one of his clients that was in the show.
Yeah.
and came to my dressing room, knock, knock, knock. Hey, kid, really liked your performance. Do you have an agent? No, I don't. Do you want one? Why, yes, I do. And so that's how that sort of happened. I know that that's not normal. Um, and then 2 weeks later, he said, well, here's a contract to go to the Bragans Festival to sing the role of Jim in Porgy and Bess, 27 performances, and you'll make $25,000. Exactly. Like, what? I didn't have a passport at the time.
And just sing Jim, who basically
And
has
sing
what,
Jim.
2 lines, 3 or 4 solo lines. That's
Exactly. Exactly. And so I didn't even have a passport at the time. I'd never been out of the country before. And here I am off to Austria, where I walk into the rehearsal room and my mind is blown again, because all of the big roles were either double or triple casts. And the chorus was 60 to 70 people. And the Vienna Philharmonic was the orchestra, with Andrew Litton conducting and Wayne Marshall conducting. And in walks George Shirley, who was making his debut in Porgy and Bess as Sport and Life in his 60s.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, I've only read about this man.
Yeah.
And here he is in the same room as me, making his debut in this opera. What is happening? So I meet so many amazing people and have the best 3 months of my life as a 20-something-year-old, with all of this money coming in, because at the time Europe wasn't on the euro, and so every country had their own money. And so Austria was still on the shilling. Right. And so the dollar was really powerful. And they paid us in American dollars every week.
Wow.
We would go to the bursar's office and they would count out your fee in $100 bills every week, every week, every week. And you don't do that to a 20-something-year-old who's never been in Europe. So I had a great time.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. And then after that, I moved to New York. And then I started singing, busy, having a big regional career. And I noticed that both from my education and early performance experiences, that I was often the only person of color in the room when I was doing standard opera. And it was only when I was doing Porgy and Bess did I see other people who looked like me. And I thought that that was weird. I thought that that was really, really strange, because during my young artist time at Connecticut Opera, the general director at the time was George Osborne, and he then made Willie Anthony Waters music director. And they brought in principal artists of the entire rainbow. Mark Rucker and Eduardo Villa and Ilan Zhu and Mary Dunleavy and all of these people I get to see close up and personal. And so I was exposed to that every day, all the time. But then when I got into the business, it wasn't that way anymore. And I thought that that was sort of strange.
So how did that lead you to opera noir? Because I think that's probably what maybe
that's exactly what led me to opera noir. So my time in Austria, a lot of the principal singers sort of took a liking to me, and I'm talking like Donnie Ray Albert and Gordon Hawkins and Marquita Lister.
Great singers.
Yeah, great singers. And they were working a lot at the time all over the world. And they said, listen, when you get to New York, call this person, call that person, or I'll call this person and tell them that you're coming. And so they did. And so when I moved to New York, I was fairly well taken care of with connections and who to coach with and who to talk to. And one of the places was Opera Ebony.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I developed a relationship with them. And then they said to me, you know, we're getting up in years and it's going to be time for the younger generation to pick up and take the charge. And so myself and 2 of my colleagues said, well, let's start something. And that was the day that Opera Noir of New York was born. And it was born sort of out of necessity for not seeing a lot of my colleagues having the same opportunities that I was having. And so I would call directors that I had worked with, conductors that I had worked with, some of these same heavy hitter singers that I had worked with, to come and do master classes for my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And Opera Ebony allowed us to use their home to have these classes. And every month, these classes would get bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point where we were like, well, there's a lot of people in this room. Maybe we should do a concert.
Mm-hmm.
And this was pre-Facebook. And
Mm-hmm.
so we printed tickets. Imagine that. We printed tickets and gave everybody 20 tickets and said, go sell these. And we rented out a church on Park Avenue, and we got 25 singers to do, 2-hour concert of a whole bunch of opera scenes, duets and trios and all of that. And the concert was sold out. And people were like, okay, so when's the next one? And I said, oh my God, we never thought past tonight. What am I going to do? So then we incorporated ourselves, became 501c3, and then started to do a whole bunch of other things. And then companies started to call us when they needed Black singers to cast. And that's how my relationship with the Royal Danish Opera happened. And so it's been pretty crazy. It's like, I didn't go to school for this part.
But, I think, and I know that you become a champion of the next, because I mean, even though you weren't old at the time,
Right.
there was another generation of young singers coming up behind you, and maybe some people at the same age
Yes.
that you were, and you were, rather than saying, "Well, you all take care of yourselves because I got my career going," and
Yeah.
God bless, good luck.
And I was told to do that by
Mhm.
some higher ups. Don't get bogged down with this, because you've got to focus on you. The same sort of people who said, stay away from Porgy and Bess because it'll ruin you.
I have to say,
So,
I've never understood that. I said, because you can control that.
yep.
If you let yourself be defined by one piece, and that's your decision.
Yes.
And I say, if I listen, I tell all of my Black students, I said, you need to learn some of these numbers, because it's a job, it's a way for you to get into the business. It doesn't have to be the end of the business unless you want it to be. If you want to do that, again, if that's your choice, you can do that. But it's a way that you have into the business that nobody else can have.
Yes.
Why wouldn't
Listen,
you why wouldn't you take advantage of that?
absolutely. It was my San Francisco opera debut,
Uh-huh.
and they've invited me back 3, 4 more times since
Right,
then.
exactly. And so, I mean, you just never know. So it's,
You just never know. You just
you
never
just, well,
know.
that agent knocking on the door, coming to see Porgy and Bess, you singing Jake,
Yep.
which is a
Yep.
good, which is a good part. But he kind of dies and disappears. He has a really good
Exactly.
number.
Yeah.
So I mean that I think that's a great example of being aware of the whole rather than just yourself.
Absolutely.
And because I think as artists sometimes think, well, you have to be self-centered and be about yourself.
Hmm.
No, there are times when you have to be selfish when you're performing. You have to take care of
Absolutely.
yourself, but you don't have to be self-centered. That's a very different,
Yeah.
I mean, I think, and so I think, I just noticed that in you, because I remember the young woman who sang Clara, Brandy, in that production of,
Oh, Randy.
and she was you were championing her. I mean, you just really,
Yeah.
you really helped that girl along the
And
way.
she's all over the place
Oh my
now.
God! Listen, that on that Black the Jesse Norman tribute, I was like,
Yeah.
where? I mean, all of a sudden, she was so shy and
Yeah.
like reserved, and all of a sudden, she got up there. I thought, like, look
Yeah.
at that! I mean, yeah,
Yep.
I was very impressed with her performance on that Jesse Norman special. I mean,
I'm so proud of her. She's made her Met debut, and she's made her City Opera debut, and she's just marvelous. Just marvelous.
and I think that's, as we need to think about that as we're going in there. Okay, you don't have to be the savior of people, but I mean, you can provide a platform where they can be heard.
Yes.
Because I think, and that's, I just think that's wonderful. Okay, so now I know that you're no longer with Opera Noir because I got
Right.
other projects going. But hey, how long did you do Opera Noir?
Ooh, 13, 14 years.
Yeah, that's a long time. That's a long
Yeah.
time. And again, time for someone else to,
To do, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
because you're moving on to your next phase. So COVID happens.
Oh my gosh.
And March, almost a year ago, March 13th, everything
Yeah.
shuts down, and you have contracts, and it's not happening, and you're
Not
and you're
happening.
and as an artist, it's very difficult, not, because you don't have regular employment because you're self-employed. So how do
Right.
you support yourself? And now I'm in my apartment. I can't go anywhere because I can't be with people and I can't sing. And so talk
Yeah.
about that experience, and then we're going to get to Black Opera Live and also
Yeah.
the film, because the film started the year before that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so talk about that process.
So I was on a tour with the American Spiritual Ensemble, which is one of my favorite things to do.
Hmm.
Um, and I left the tour in early March because I had a solo recital here in New York at Lehman College. And it was a noonday recital on the 12th of March.
Oh,
And it was just buzzing around that this virus was happening, or
right.
and I did the recital, and at the end of it they handed me my check. They said, here's your check, the university is closed, good luck, be safe, goodbye.
Hmm.
And that was the last time that I had sung anything for the next 2.5, 3 months. um every single day my agent at UIA Talent Agency was calling or emailing, telling us that this job was canceled, that job was canceled. We're looking forward to the summer. And then those got canceled. Oh, we're looking forward to the fall. And then those were canceled. Uh, and I didn't want to sing. It brought nothing but heartache and sadness. And not being clinically diagnosed, I can honestly tell you that I do believe I was absolutely depressed severely. I didn't want to get off of the couch. I didn't want to turn off Netflix or stop ordering pizza. I didn't want to practice. I didn't do any scales. I had scores on my table for gigs that I had already started preparing for that were now gone. And so it was like, I'll put those back on the shelf. This isn't happening. And people were calling and asking me to do these virtual things, or to sing into my phone, or to sing into my computer. And at the time, I didn't have ring lights, and I didn't have Yeti microphones, and I didn't have any of this. And I said, I'm not in the mood. My voice was not built or trained to do that. And so I was sort of stuck in, well, if I can't do it my way, then I'm just not going to do it. And then then Black people started to again be murdered senselessly in the streets. And so Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, and all of this is happening at once. And I'm like, I I can't deal with this at all. And then after much prayer and meditation, and I do have a life coach who really earned her money during that time, got up off of the couch and snapped out of it and said, you know what? You have a greater purpose. And just because you can't do it on stage right now, there are other platforms and other ways for you to do it. And so I called the folks who I'm partnered with in producing this documentary called Black Opera. And I said, listen, we got to keep the name of the film going because we can't fundraise right now because people are dying and losing their jobs. We can't ask for money to support our film. So what can we do? And so we started Black Opera Live, a talk show. And we said, let's try it out for June and July. And then we did. And people were like, well, you can't stop now. So we've been doing it every week for every month since then. So I'm like 45 episodes in, and I've been able to talk to people that are my colleagues, people who are younger, people who are older and more established, superstar singers, conductors, composers, like everybody across the musical industry. And it's been enlightening and informative to me, but also to society at large. I get,
To me,
notes and emails and DMs, and thank you for doing this, and we really appreciate this, and thank you for sharing this, and I didn't know about this. And so it's been a labor of love to do
so it's,
it.
it's a bit of a bonus from this that again, we were talking earlier. It's something that you probably would have wanted to do, but never had the time or the space or the
Right, because we're on planes and trains
right,
and
right. And so
automobiles and,
you're going everywhere.
rehearsals, and yeah.
So if you get a chance, tune in. Now, Black Opera Live moves around, but you can go to Kenny's Facebook page, or Black Opera Live has a Facebook page too, right?
Yes, and a YouTube page, and all the episodes are
All
there.
the episodes that you should watch. I mean, you can't believe who he's got there. I mean, you just can't believe. You just go on there, and who you're having a new guest this
A
coming
new guest
Is
this
it
week. Oh
Sunday?
my gosh. I was supposed to have her this coming Monday, but she's in Oklahoma,
You're
and
right.
they, as you know, are having this
The ice.
horrible weather. And she said, "Oh my God, I have satellite internet and it's down and it's terrible. Let's reschedule." So this coming Wednesday,
Wednesday.
I
Okay.
have the great Leona Mitchell
And you do
to,
not, and you guys have seen Leona Mitchell, and I think you're seeing her maybe in the tour. There's a tour that it may be no, not it wasn't this one, but
it was Ernani, I believe the Met showed
yes,
recently.
Ernani showed it. Yes, it was yes,
Uh-huh.
and but also she's a Liu in the
Liu in
Turandot
the
to Bingo.
Turandot, and in the
Oh,
Carmen with
Carmen,
Agnes Balsa and
right.
Carreras.
So
Yeah.
she is. I mean, I'm telling you, she made me fall in love when I heard her sing.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, and so I'm so looking forward. I mean, I'm in tech rehearsal, so I always watch. I have to watch it afterwards, but I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
seeing that one.
I'm
So
so excited to have
so
her.
here is
So
here.
excited.
So this young guy, this young singer from Philadelphia. Look at. I mean, if you just that those accomplishments are amazing, and the fact that now you have Black Opera Live, and you were involved in that the tribute to Jesse Norman. You hosted that, and
Yes.
those wonderful the garb that you wore from the African artist, right? Yeah.
Well, let me tell you where that came from. So, uh, about 3 years ago, someone asked me in an interview when we were in old life. They said, "What do you like to be called or referred to? Do you like to say Black or do you like to say African American?" And I thought about it for a while, and I said, for now, let's say either. But then it made me go and do some research. And so I got my ancestry DNA done
Ah,
and figured it out and saw where I'm from. And so now I say I am African American because I
okay.
can prove it.
Okay.
And so because I don't like looking like every other guy in the room, and because when you do concert performances or recitals or orchestral appearances, all the guys are in tuxedos and the girls are in these
Glammed
amazing
out.
gowns and glammed out. And I'm like, well, why do we all have to look the same? And so
Mhm.
I decided then that in all of my concert wardrobe, I would infuse fabrics and prints from the very countries where my ancestry is dictated. So
Mhm.
that's where that came from. But yeah, in doing the concert for Miss Norman, that happened during middle of July, I think it was. A friend of mine sent me a DM on Facebook. He said, "Listen, just wanted to remind you that September 15th would have been Jesse Norman's 75th birthday. You should do something." And
Mhm.
that was it. That was all he said. And I'm like, well, what the heck am I going to do? We're in a pandemic. I can't, I don't want people singing into their phones for Jesse.
Right.
So in my way, I always obsess
Mhm.
about new ideas and projects. And I stay up to like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and I
Mhm.
write things down, like with a pen and paper, like not on the computer. I
Yeah.
write them down and I ball up the paper like that was a crappy idea and throw it away. And I write them down again and I pull scores out. And I said, what can we do? What can we do? So the next morning, I had a meeting for the film. And after the official meeting was over, I said, hey, listen, guys, I have an idea and I think we should do it. If it's a terrible idea or if we can't, just tell me and I'll go and mind my business. I said,
Mhm.
I think we need to do a big virtual gala to celebrate Jessie since she's going to be, a part of the film anyway. And they said, you know what? It'll be a lot of work, but it's a great idea. Let's do it.
Mhm.
And so we just started calling people, and people started saying yes, and yes, and yes. And then the venue that we used for a lot of the performances said, listen, if you've got a COVID specialist on your team and everybody follows guidelines, you can film here and you can film here for free. And we'll even donate X amount of dollars to the cause. And people just started giving and contributing, and we were able to pay our artists. And it was just such a wonderful thing. And then to get an award from a blogger for the best gala of 2020,
Mhm.
it, it was just outrageous. But again, a full circle moment to be able to honor a woman who I first saw that
Right.
changed my life.
Yeah. And
So that's what,
it was really quite something. We all got together. We went as a class, and we all sat there. And we all watched, turned the lights down, and watched it together.
oh,
And well, because we had been on a big screen TV. You know, we put it up there, and it was a lot of fun. And the singing was fantastic. The thing that was really moving to me, though, is the pianist who played Morgan without the voice.
Damian Sneed, yes.
But I mean, I tell you, I got choked up because here this woman is no longer with us, and she's so well known for that. I mean, I can hear
Yes.
her singing it, in my head. But just to have that kind of moment of meditation and tribute was so beautifully done.
He she mentored him. He actually played a lot of recitals for her.
Right.
And he's also from Georgia. And she would often ask him to play that piano version at parties
Hmm.
that she would have and
Yeah.
host. And so when I asked him to participate, he said, "Please let me play this." And
It was so perfect. It hit every note, every right note. It was just really
yeah,
very moving, and to have, I mean, it was a gift basically to us. So then again, had we not had this pandemic, who knows?
yeah,
It might have just gone by.
exactly.
You would not have had time to plan that and put the thing together. So I mean, I heard there's a minister on the West Coast, Michael Beckwith.
Hmm.
He calls these things Corona bonus.
I love that.
You know, and I think that's it's true. And I hope that we remember this time,
Yes,
something that we can bring into something that when we go back to some sense of normalcy, that we hold on to the relationships and the way that we've connected to each other in a way that would not have happened.
yes.
I mean, you came into the class for me, and I reached out to you to talk about some things for school. But I mean, it's not that I wouldn't reach out to you. It's just like, well, he's busy. He just I always think, well, I don't think anybody remembers me anyway. So I just think, well, he might not remember who I am. So I mean, it's not that. I mean, I just don't think about that, because if I don't talk to somebody for a few years, maybe they don't remember who I was. I don't know.
No, I remember everybody. I have a memory of an elephant, I swear.
Yeah. So, for our listeners at home that are going to watch this later this afternoon, I'm sure they'll get it up there. We're going
Yeah.
to finish out this week. We're in the Zeffirelli week. We're going to finish out with Mozart's Don Giovanni tonight. This is a classic performance with Carol Vaness and Don Upshaw and Sam Raimi and Furlanetto. That's a pretty good
My
record. That's a pretty good
gosh.
performance. Yeah. And then Carmen tomorrow with Domingo and Waltraud Meyer, which is an unusual thing. That was from 1997, so that'll be
Uh-huh.
interesting to see. And
Was
then
that a Zeffirelli?
this is Zeffirelli, the
Yeah,
Zeffirelli
yeah,
Carmen. Yeah,
yeah.
it's an all Zeffirelli, and then the Zeffirelli, of course, Turandot with Poposkaya and Giordani and Sam Raimi from 2000.
Uh-huh.
And then next week is an all Dmitry Horstovsky week. And we're going to see Trovatore, which we've seen, Onegin, we've seen Hernani with Angela Mead, Traviata with Dessay, Balo and Mascara with Radvanovsky and Kathleen Kim, and Stephanie Blythe, who can get better than that. I
I
mean,
love me some Stephanie Blythe.
and then
Oh,
and Trovatore with Netrebko and Zajic. And then a new piece that we haven't seen on the Met, they haven't played it, is Queen of Spades, Peak Dom, with
uh-huh.
Horstovsky and Gorchakova and Elizabeth Soderstrom and Domingo. So that'll be a lot
Wow.
of fun. So it's a big Horstovsky week. We miss him so much. What a great artist. What a great singer. I mean,
Oh my gosh.
when he came out and sang on the Met that gala, what was it, the 150th anniversary or
Something like that. Yeah.
whatever it was a few years ago. I mean, that was just so great to see him back on the stage.
So heartfelt and special.
Well, Kenny, our time is up, but I thank you for bearing with us through our technical difficulty earlier.
Listen, that's our world.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's a little bit like live performance. Things happen in performance, you just got to make it work, right?
Yeah.
That's what we do as live performers. We make it work, and I think these kind of dual career that you have as entrepreneur and keeper of passing the flame, I guess I would call that,
Yes. Yeah.
and this extraordinary performing career that started from a boy who didn't read music when he went to the arts high school and had never taken a voice lesson until he got to college. Think about that.
Yep.
Think about and because I think you were always open-minded enough and had faith that it
Yes.
was that you were supposed to do. I mean, the fact that at every turn that you had the opportunity to not be a singer, you were either sucked back into it or you were able to make that decision to go back into it. And that's the I think that's the staying power of how you have a career. Is you're
I
just
think so too.
you're
It's how
willing to
you,
know
you
enough. And people just tell you no enough until someone says yes, or right?
yeah. And you've got to know how to pivot. You've
Right.
got to know how to move and shake and make it work, you know?
Yeah, and to understand that there's all kinds of careers. So look at you started as a young artist in the chorus first at Connecticut Opera, then a young artist program. Then you go whisked off to Austria, and then you come back and you begin having a regional opera career,
Yeah.
which is a good career. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to make a whole living that way, but it's a good career. And then
Yeah.
this opportunity, and then well, opera noir. Well, I guess I'll dabble in that. Oh, we'll become a five. Okay, we'll become a nonprofit. Okay, we'll make that happen for a while. In the meantime, your career is taking off. I mean,
Right.
yeah. We're hoping that next year we're going to have you back in North Carolina with Opera Carolina. You want to talk just a bit about that project that because you workshopped it. You've done a
Yeah,
yeah.
a new opera called I Dream, written by Douglas Tappan. He's Atlanta based, but Jamaican and British descent.
Mhm.
And it's about the last 36 hours or so of the life of Martin Luther King Jr. And Opera Carolina commissioned it. And we did sort of a trifecta run of it a couple of seasons ago at Opera Carolina, Toledo Opera, and Opera Grand Rapids.
Mhm.
But the score has been reworked, a new director, new orchestration,
Full production, a full production.
new production. And so it was supposed to premiere in April of 2020, but Corona had other ideas. So
Yes.
it's been pushed back to the last week of September of 21. So we've got our fingers crossed.
Let's hope that we get you down here in September of 21.
Yes, and we'll bring the students from
Yeah.
USA up to the show and
That's right.
yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
make it a whole thing.
Make it a thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Kenny, thank you so much for visiting with us today. You have a safe weekend. Stay warm because I know the weather up there has been horrible.
Yes.
And I look forward to talking to you soon and watching what great things are gonna happen. I'm looking forward to the talk with Leona Mitchell, even if I have to watch it like after 10 o'clock on Wednesday. Okay.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Bye bye.
All right. Bye-bye.